Have you ever wanted to truly grasp the immense, sprawling story of U.S. history from its very beginnings right up to the present day, but felt maybe a bit lost? In the sheer volume of information. It's like looking at a huge, intricate tapestry and, well, not knowing where to even start looking. Today, we're embarking on let's call it a unique deep dive. We're looking at the very blueprint of American history. Our goal isn't to cram every single date into your brain, but to give you a really powerful mental map.
Exactly. We're using this really fascinating, highly structured document. It's an outline from Wikipedia,
Yep.
and it's designed to give a comprehensive sort of topical guide to U.S. history. Think of it less like a textbook, and more like a super detailed table of contents for, well, an entire library of knowledge on the subject.
Right. And our mission today is to navigate this incredible resource. We want to pull out the most important nuggets, maybe highlight some surprising facts, and really help you, our curious listener, build a clearer framework, for understanding the pivotal events, the key eras, and the different ways, the different lenses we can view the American story. Consider this your shortcut, maybe, to feeling incredibly well-informed on this huge subject, hopefully with some aha moments along the way.
That was good.
Okay, so let's unpack this blueprint then. The source, it immediately jumps into organizing history by periods, which is, frankly, incredibly helpful for breaking down such a massive timeline into, well, digestible chunks. It identifies specific named eras that historians often use.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how these multi-year periods, even with their sometimes debated start and end dates, really help us frame the historical narratives. It shows that even the way we categorize history is part of an ongoing process of understanding. It's not just a list of events, it's how we group them together
Yeah.
to see those larger forces at play.
Okay, let's explore some of these defining periods. Just knowing their names can give you a much clearer picture, I think. So we start with the prehistoric and pre-Columbian era. That leads right up to 1607. It's that time before widespread European settlement. Then comes the colonial era, running from 1607 to 1765. This is where European powers established their footholds and really started to shape the land and its diverse peoples.
And what's critical about the colonial era, I think, is understanding it wasn't just one monolithic block of time. You had really distinct regions developing, often with very different economic, social, political structures, all under the shadow of these big European empires.
Absolutely. Then, okay, things really start to heat up with the American Revolution. That's dated here, 1765 to 1783, a truly pivotal period of rebellion and the birth of a new nation. This leads into the often overlooked Confederation period, 1783, 1788,
hmm
which sounds like this messy experimental time when the newly independent states were trying to figure out, okay, how do we govern ourselves now?
It's such a crucial reminder that nation building wasn't immediate or easy right after the revolution. Not at all.
Yeah.
The Confederation period really highlighted the urgent need for, well, a stronger, more unified central government.
Yeah.
And that ultimately led to the Constitution.
Right. And from there, we enter the Federalist era, 1788 to 1801, and then the Jeffersonian era, 1801 to 1817. These are periods defining the early republic and those foundational political debates, right?
Exactly, setting the stage.
Then we hit the era of good feelings, roughly 1817 to 1825. What's insightful here, despite the name, is how quickly that sense of national unity kind of fractured, revealing these underlying sectional tensions that'll just keep growing.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how historical labels can be, well, deceptively simple. While there might have been less overt political fighting for a bit, fundamental disagreements about the economy, about slavery, federal power, they were definitely brewing just beneath the surface.
hmm Those brewing tensions then give way to the Jacksonian era, roughly 1820 to 1845, a period marked by the rise of the common man in politics and these fierce debates over states' rights. Then, starkly, we plunge into the Civil War era, 1849-1865. And the outline also mentions the broader, Greater Reconstruction, 1846-1898.
Yes.
These are periods of, unimaginable conflict and profound social transformation, reshaping the very fabric of the nation.
And that greater Reconstruction term is particularly insightful, I find, because it extends beyond the traditional Reconstruction years we usually think of. It highlights that the challenges, integrating former slaves, rebuilding the South,
Right.
was a long, drawn-out process, not some quick fix after the war ended.
Moving into industrialization and significant social upheaval, we see the Gilded Age, 1877, 1896. a time of immense wealth but also huge disparity, rapid industrial growth, followed by the Progressive Era, 1896-1917, which seems like a direct response to the Gilded Age's excesses, right? Bringing widespread social and political reform.
Absolutely. The contrast between the Gilded Age's sort of unchecked capitalism and the Progressive Era's push for regulation and social justice, it really shows how American society reacted to its own rapid evolution. These two eras, while distinct, are just deeply intertwined in their cause and effect. You can't really understand one without the other.
And then the 20th century brings some very distinct highlights. The Roaring Twenties, 1918, 1929, and the Jazz Age. Such a vibrant time of cultural change, economic boom, immediately followed by the severe shock of the Great Depression, 1929, 1939,
Yeah.
and the New Deal era, 1933, 1938, which saw massive government intervention in the economy trying to fix things.
That rapid shift from the exuberance of the 20s to the desperation of the Depression, it vividly illustrates those boom and bust cycles that have periodically hit American economic history.
Yeah.
And it shows how the government's role just dramatically expanded in response.
Okay, finally, we arrive at periods dominated by global conflicts and modern challenges. World War I, 1917, 1918, and World War II, 1941, 1945. These fundamentally reshaped America's place in the world. Then the Cold War, 1947, 1991, casting that long shadow, followed by the Civil Rights Era, 1954, 1968, a monumental struggle for equality. We also see the Vietnam War, 1964, 1975, the Reagan era, 1980, 1992, and the source notes the ongoing war on terror, listing it as 2001-2021.
Yeah, this categorization by eras provides a really powerful scaffold. It helps us understand the dominant themes, the challenges of specific periods. It gives us that mental map before we dive into the individual events that define them. It's like seeing the chapters before reading the book, you know?
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, I think, because the source also provides these highly specific year-by-year timelines, and it's full of fascinating details, pivotal moments that really bring those broader eras to life.
Yes. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, these specific dates and events, they're the bedrock. They define those broader eras we just talked about. They show us the concrete actions, the turning points that actually shifted the course of history.
Let's pull out a few compelling examples, starting way back with the earliest European arrivals. On October 12, 1492, of course, Christopher Columbus landed on Guanahani, named it San Salvador. We all know that one. But did you know that in 1521, Ferdinand Magellan's expedition landed on Guam, and he initially called the Islands of the Lateen Sails,
Okay.
only to rename them the Islands of the Thieves after some natives apparently took iron from his ships.
Wow.
That tiny detail shows how quickly interactions could turn hostile, right? Shaping those early perceptions.
It immediately highlights the transactional and often conflictual nature of these initial European encounters, often driven by resources, cultural misunderstandings. It's a stark contrast to some of the more, shall we say, romanticized narratives we sometimes get.
Exactly. Moving into early settlements and the brutal shifting of powers. The English established the Roanoke colony in July 1585, but by August 1590, a resupply party found it just dismantled and deserted.
The lost colony.
Yeah, its settlers' fate remains one of history's great mysteries.
And the mystery of the lost colony isn't just some quirky historical anecdote, is it? It serves as a really stark early reminder of the incredible perils, the unknown challenges faced by European colonists. It shows how precarious these ventures truly were, even for supposedly well-funded expeditions.
Okay, fast forward a bit to the founding of more permanent colonies and some key changes that would really define the nation. The English established the Virginia colony on Jamestown Island, May 14, 1607. But a truly pivotal and frankly tragic moment occurred just 12 years later. The first slave ship arrived in Jamestown, Virginia in 1619.
1619.
This event laid the groundwork for an institution that would deeply scar the nation for centuries.
That 1619 date is absolutely crucial. It marks the very beginning of chattel slavery in what would become the United States, an institution that would profoundly shape its economy, its society, its politics, directly leading to later conflicts and, of course, the civil rights struggles. It's foundational in a terrible way.
The road to revolution and nationhood saw numerous flashpoints. The Kingdom of Great Britain was formed on May 1st, 1707, uniting England and Scotland. What this immediately meant was that all those English colonies across the Atlantic suddenly became British colonies. That's a pretty big shift in allegiance overnight.
Yeah, changes the whole dynamic.
And then a dramatic incident that ignited public anger. British troops killed 5 civilians in Boston on March 5, 1770. an event that became known as the Boston Massacre.
Right. And the Boston Massacre wasn't just some local incident. It was expertly leveraged as propaganda by colonial leaders.
Yeah.
It really galvanized public opinion against British rule. It showed the power of a single shocking event to crystallize dissent.
The American Revolutionary War then officially began on April 19, 1775, with the battles of Lexington and Concord. The United States of America declared independence from Great Britain on July 4, 1776, with those 13 provinces uniting. Then the U.S. Constitution, written at the Philadelphia Convention in 1787, took effect when New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify it on June 21, 1788, creating the framework for the government we know today.
A monumental achievement in itself, creating that framework.
As the young nation expanded, new challenges arose almost immediately. The United States took possession of the massive Louisiana Purchase on December 20, 1803, doubling the size of the country overnight, basically.
Yeah.
This acquisition immediately raised questions about westward expansion and, crucially, the future of slavery in these new territories.
The Louisiana Purchase wasn't just about land, was it? It fundamentally reshaped America's identity. It drove that concept of manifest destiny and intensified the debates over the balance of power between free states and slave states. It really set the stage for so much of the 19th century's defining conflicts.
And speaking of conflict, the Civil War, it remains America's greatest internal struggle. Officially began April 12, 1861, Battle of Fort Sumter, though South Carolina had actually seceded earlier, December 20, 1860.
Right, the first to go.
Abraham Lincoln became the 16th president March 4, 1861, and issued the Emancipation Proclamation September 22, 1863, transforming the war into a fight for freedom. The war ended by May 13, 1865, tragically followed by Lincoln's assassination just a month earlier, April 14th.
And the Emancipation Proclamation, while it didn't free all slaves immediately, was such a moral turning point. It signaled that the war wasn't just about preserving the Union anymore, but fundamentally about ending slavery. It reshaped America's future entirely. Then you get the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments dealing with slavery and civil rights. They took effect between 1865 and 1870, fundamentally changing the legal and social landscape of the country. Huge changes.
As America entered the 20th century, its global reach expanded significantly. The Spanish-American War in 1898 led to the United States annexing the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam, a significant step onto the world stage as, well, an imperial power.
Definitely a shift.
Later, the U.S. seized the opportunity to build the Panama Canal, annexing the Canal Zone in 1903, a massive feat of engineering that drastically shortened global shipping routes.
Yeah, the acquisition of territories like the Philippines and the building of the Panama Canal, they're key indicators of America's shift, a move away from isolationism towards becoming a global player, driven by economic interests, strategic power projection. It's a new era.
Okay, flash forward to more recent history. The Empire of Japan attacked Pearl Harbor December 7, 1941, leading to the U.S. declarations of war, entry into World War II.
A day that lives in infamy.
And the U.S. tested the first atomic bomb in New Mexico July 16, 1945, just weeks before dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, forever changing the nature of warfare.
The development and use of the atomic bomb. It didn't just end World War II. It initiated the nuclear age, profoundly influencing international relations, arms races, the Cold War that would follow for decades. A complete game changer.
In the 21st century, the 9/11 attacks, September 11, 2001, tragically leading to the war in Afghanistan, 2001 to 2021, and the Iraq War, 2003 to 2011.
Yeah.
And our source even notes recent events like the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the attack on the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. And for completeness, it even includes Donald Trump becoming the 47th president on January 20, 2025.
Keeping it current.
So, okay, what does all this mean? Beyond just this chronological march of events, this outline offers different lenses, right? Different ways to understand American history. It breaks it down by region and by subject, allowing for a much deeper dive into specific aspects.
And this raises a really important question, I think. How can looking at history through these multiple perspectives enrich our understanding? It helps us see patterns, interconnectedness, the multifaceted nature of human experience that a simple timeline might just miss. It's like turning a flat image into a 3D model, you know?
Absolutely. Like, you can explore the history of specific regions, the American Old West, for example, which isn't just cowboys and Native Americans, right? It's also about massive migrations, resource exploitation, cultural clashes. It's complex.
Exactly.
Or you could dive into the Confederate States of America to try and understand the perspective of the South during the Civil War. Or explore New England, the South, the West Coast, even individual states like the history of California or history of New York.
But perhaps even more powerfully, the outline categorizes history by subject. This is where you can really focus your interest. Take cultural history. Think about the history of the hamburger in the United States.
A hamburger history, really?
Yeah. It might sound trivial, but it's actually a fascinating lens into American industrialization, the rise of fast food culture, even immigration patterns that brought different culinary traditions. It shows how everyday objects can tell a bigger historical story.
Okay, I see.
This lens also covers music history, of course, and the history of various demographic groups. African Americans, Native Americans, LGBTQ history, the history of women, including that critical fight for suffrage.
Right, so instead of just knowing when the 19th Amendment passed, you can dive into the long struggle of the women's suffrage movement itself, understanding the social forces, the key figures involved, the whole story.
Exactly. Then there's economic history. Here you can understand the evolution of banking, industrial history covering everything from agriculture and tobacco to petroleum and rail transport. You can explore labor history, monetary policy, even the history of public debt. This lens shows you the engine, really, of American development, its triumphs and its struggles.
And for political history, the outline covers the history of the United States Constitution, which is so much more than just a document, isn't it? It's a living, evolving framework. You can follow the presidents of the United States, from George Washington all the way to Donald Trump notably mentioning his non-consecutive terms, and trace the history of Congress and the Supreme Court.
And crucially, you can also examine the history of civil rights in the United States, including the major movements. This isn't just a series of dates, but a profound narrative of social change, of justice, showing how legal and political battles were fought to expand fundamental rights over time. Or you could delve into military history, from specific conflicts to the branches of the armed forces, nuclear history, revealing how security concerns have shaped policy again and again.
And beyond these big categories, the outline even covers other specialized histories, like the history of education, geographic history, including how territories evolved, the history of healthcare, covering medicine and healthcare reform. You can even explore historiography, which is the study of how history itself is written and interpreted.
Which is fascinating in itself.
Right, or the history of science, including paleontology. It's truly incredibly comprehensive.
It really is.
What an incredible journey just looking through the structural bones of U.S. history, from those very first European landings to the complexities of the 21st century, and from these broad eras down to specific cultural and economic threads. This outline provides a really powerful tool for understanding.
Yeah, by seeing history laid out in this multi-dimensional way, chronologically, yes, but also regionally and thematically, you really can gain a much richer appreciation for its depth and complexity. Without getting completely lost in the weeds of the details, it helps you connect the dots yourself, seeing how seemingly disparate events are often woven together.
So as you reflect on this deep dive we've taken, maybe consider this. What patterns or recurring themes do you notice across these different eras and subjects? How might understanding history through these diverse lenses help us interpret the challenges we face today? And maybe most importantly, what lessons can we draw for the future to perhaps avoid repeating the mistakes of the past?